It's come to my attention that not everybody's a mechanic. Not everybody's related to a mechanic. Most people don't even know about cars. This is a quick guide to buying a used car with just a paper towel and a flashlight. There's a lot more to buying a car than just what it looks like. Anyone can see this stuff, or this, or maybe even this. I wasn't looking for what looked good, I wanted what ran good. Now here's something most people might not have noticed. Two different colors here. On the driver's side, they're both the same color. That tells me this door has been replaced. It's actually missing the weather stripping around the door. This is what it should look like. Likely this door came off of a different model, maybe an S model. Black trim was more sporty, but it works and functions just fine. So if you're worried about cosmetics, I'd walk from this one. I'm not worried about that. Let's get into it. 150,000 miles with no lights, except for that one. That is your low tire pressure light. Nobody's going to sell a car with that on if they can simply put air in the tires. And considering all our tires are good, and this is a 14-year-old car, your first expense is going to be tire pressure sensors. At least one, if not two or three. And I had this confirmed when I got an alignment done. This car has 3 bad sensors, and that can cost you $400 or $500 to be replaced. But again, I'm not really worried about that. Go around, check all your tires. These front 2 are brand new. I just put those on. Fronts are good. How about the back? Very good tread on the back as well. Also, you can tell how well they liked the car and maintained it just by the brand that they put on it. These are name brand, high dollar Michelins. That tells me they didn't mind splurging on maintenance costs. The 4th and final tire, just as good. And let me show you a little secret, how to tell how old these tires are. There'll always be this little area that can be stamped. This little code right here tells me that these tires were manufactured on the 42nd week of 2022. Just because your tires got good tread don't mean they're good. They could be dry rotted and 10 years old for all you know. These are the tires I put on when I bought the car early this year, the 2nd week of 2024. So this bad boy is good on tires. This car makes it a little difficult to check the brakes due to the steel wheels. But if what you're looking at has larger wheels like this, you can clearly see that is a new pad. Also new rotors. Let's carry on into the trunk. I actually looked at a Honda Civic that was hit really bad in the rear. And I could tell that because I could look down in here. Down in here with all the clips and stuff. Also, I was able to pull this stuff back, and all this in here was all crinkled up. So basically that guy just put a shell of a bumper over top of all that damage. And the trunk body lines were not straight. They should be consistent side to side. So that was definitely a deal breaker. Let's check underneath at the spare tire and all the tools. Make sure it's there. When I was looking at buying this car, I did this. And this compartment down here was full of water. It was easy enough to drain. There's a drain under that tire. But why was it full of water? When I originally looked at it, this weather stripping right here was not sealed. It was sitting off like that. And that's not creating a seal. So every time it would rain, it would get moisture down. That's probably where that surface rust came from too. And that was as simple as just putting that rubber back. I actually added this, so it was actually going down onto that. Covered tires, brakes, and body damage. Now it's time to get to the meat and potatoes, because you're not really going to care what it looks like broke down on the side of the road. Now a lot of this stuff may look intimidating, but most of it is fairly simple. Normally your oil dipstick is clearly marked. This is yellow. It literally says engine oil. So we'll wipe this off. We will confirm that the oil is clean and full between these two little hatch marks. If this oil is black or if this oil is low, it's overdue on a service and it's probably been neglected. This is your washer fluid, and right next to it is the coolant reservoir. About every coolant reservoir has a full mark and a low mark. This one is in the full, and you can pop this off and look at it and check the condition. It is clean and bright red. Some can be bright red, some can be bright green, some can even be purple or yellow. As long as it don't look like brown muddy water, you're probably good. Most of these newer cars have plastic all over. Just lift right off. This is where you take your flashlight and you just get into every nook and cranny that you can find. I know this all looks like a lot and you have no clue what you're actually looking at. But we're going to break it down in 3 categories. We'll keep it simple. We're going to look for anything wet. We're going to look for anything super old or rusted. We're gonna look for anything that looks new. Anything that is wet is our #1 concern. Anything that is super old, we want to be aware of. And anything that looks new is good, because that means it's probably been replaced recently. So let's go from left to right so we don't forget anything. These nuts right here are nice and shiny. They are not like these nuts. And it is the same on the other side. So if we come down, we can see that we have brand new strut assemblies. They even have a date code on them. That is a great thing to have because that can be an expensive repair. This component here is the alternator, and it appears to be original. And if it's not, it's been on there a while. I'm zoomed in on the belt right now. These ridges right here are in really good shape. This is a new belt. If it was old, they would have a bunch of cracks from dry rot. Here is another new part. You can tell it is bright and shiny compared to others. So this car has had a new belt and a water pump installed. However, down at the bottom, the AC compressor appears to be original. We're just going to carry on here. And what you're seeing right here is completely normal for a 150,000 mile vehicle. This is not something I'd consider wet. This reservoir over here is for brake fluid. It has a max line and a minimum line. It's hard to tell because brake fluid is almost clear. You can tell using your light, the fluid is near the minimum line. If you can't easily see the brake pads, the brake fluid being low is a good indication of pad wear. The less brake pad you have, the more your caliper compresses, the more fluid is used. When I say get in here, I mean it. You want to inspect everything you can possibly see. Down here is one of your engine mounts, and make sure that rubber is intact. It's not cracked, broken, or worn. Do the best you can to see this one. There's the rubber down there. It's hard to get on camera, but this is one behind the engine. It is good. This sensor looks newer than the rest, so that has been replaced. Not every car has a transmission dipstick anymore, but luckily this one does. So we're going to pull that out, inspect the fluid. You can't really take a reading without it running. Depends on the manufacturer. Make sure that fluid is in good condition. Normal ATF is red. You do not want this to be brown or really dark. Let's move on to our battery. That is corrosion. And remember, I said look for anything wet. You can see the staining where this battery is actually leaking acid. And if you look hard enough, you can normally find the manufacturer date on the battery. 2015 will put this at almost 10 years old. Normally, if you get 5 years out of a car battery, you're doing pretty good. So you can pretty much assume that this is on its way out the door. And with the price of batteries being so high, you could use that as leverage to negotiate on the asking price. So this is your air filter housing, one on each side. Just pull this up, check the filter. Looks good. Somebody's maintained it. Me. Just make sure you lock them back. We're almost done under here. I'm going to put my plastic back. Take this oil fill cap off and inspect. This is directly under your valve cover, right inside the engine. This gives you a glimpse of what the internals may look like. If it had overdue oil changes, it would be sludge and black. Also, check under the cap. If there's a milky color under here, chances are you got problems, likely a blown head gasket. Once it's the operating temperature, carefully take this cap off and just set it right back down into place. If this cap blows off of here and won't stay on, you have excessive blow-by and this engine is worn out. This one is good. So the under hood inspection checks out. So now it's time to get on the ground. If you remember, we're looking for 3 things. Anything wet, anything super rusted, or anything new. So right here, we have our engine oil pan. You want to get around that and look as best you can for any oil leaks or dents. Make sure everything under here is consistent and straight and nothing is damaged where something has hit the undercarriage or possibly been in an accident. Check these rubber boots on your CV axles. You don't want to see anything torn where there is grease coming out of them. Normally there's a whole lot more rust on these CV axles. This one has been replaced recently, along with the sway bar links. We noticed the new strut assemblies in the other video. This is just a different view. Check the other side. This one has also been replaced. The entire CV axle and the sway bar link, all new. Yet another great thing to have on something with 150,000 miles. Although some of you have mentioned new parts is not always good, in this case it's great that we have new axles. But there is a downside to this one. This is our transmission pan. And if you look back here, here is the wet red flag I've been telling you to look for. We have a leak. So this could be as simple as a leaking oil pan or even a seeping drain plug. If you really get in here and look, I believe the source of this leak is the CV axle seal in the transmission. So yes, new parts are great, assuming the repair was done correctly. This CV axle seal should have been replaced with the axle. Not a huge deal. It does not leave puddles on my driveway. I'm just closely monitoring it. Also from here you can kind of inspect your exhaust system and anything else you can find. After buying a bunch of used cars over the years for myself and family members, I got a couple tips to share most people don't think about. Tip number 1, never buy a car in the rain. Unless it's brand new, a wet car will hide imperfections like this. I actually bought a Honda Civic that looked brand new. And in some cases it was. It had a brand new paint job. But because I bought it when it was wet, I didn't notice how bad it was. Somebody had painted the car outside. After everything dried, I could actually see bugs under the clear coat. So I learned my lesson not to buy a car when it's raining. The second lesson is probably the most important. One of my red flags is someone that has warmed the car up before you go to see it. I want to hear that thing start cold. And here's why. Some cars will make horrible noises when they're cold after sitting overnight. And that could be related to one of your variable valve timing, cam phasers, oil pressure issues, a number of things, which can definitely be an expensive repair. Do not buy a car without test driving it. Turn on your lights. Make sure the air condition works. Make sure the heat works. If you have power mirrors, make sure they move. All the windows go up and down. Notice how it shifts from gears. If there's any clunking or odd noises. And just take her on the road. Feel it out. Any weird noises over bumps? How does it feel? How does it shift? Is it smooth? Is it clunky? And don't be a grandma. Don't be afraid to get down on this thing. After all, if you're going to own it, you're going to have to deal with it. And with the price of cars nowadays, if it can't merge on the interstate without throwing a check engine light or something, then you don't want it. I probably look like an idiot right now riding around with this neck-hanging phone thing. Another big piece of advice I'll give is do not buy it unless you drive it on the interstate. Tooling it around a neighborhood is not going to tell you everything. Car could act completely different from low speed to high speed. Get in a middle lane so the crown of the road isn't affecting it. Let your hands go. See if it drifts. See if it's straight. See if it's shaking or vibrating. This was pretty dang good. How do the brakes feel coming to a stop? Is there any shaking or shimmying? Is it taking forever to stop? This is why I bought this car. It drives smooth, it runs smooth. It has some flaws cosmetically, but I wanted the most mechanically sound car I could get for the money. 9 times out of 10, that's a Honda or a Toyota. That pretty much sums it up. There's a lot to know, and there's a lot I probably left out. I hope this guide helps. Leave me a comment for any questions or things I may have missed.